up? I got Naskin here with me. This ain't a diss song, but yeah, you know what it is. I'm a cheesehead, y'all niggas cheese whiz. Pittsburgh Steelers, that's nothing. That Super Bowl ring, that's nothing. Pull up in your town when you.
I'm not asking you to name names as a follow-up to this, but at this point, you have a pretty good idea of, I don't know, 35, 40, 45 guys. I mean, you have, I assume, X number of guys.
Yeah. I think we're getting closer. I think you get, you're starting to get a better idea because you've had a couple preseason games to evaluate. I don't know what practice we're on now, but there's been enough tape to kind of start to narrow some things down. But again, I think Thursday night and then here at Kansas City, I think it's going to be big. So a lot of things to be decided, but we're getting closer.
Brian, what's your system for a lot of teams are going to be releasing players. You're going to have 1,000 players available. Is it kind of like a draft where you trade a board, or is it kind of a quick process to evaluate players who become available?
So it's we have a pro staff, kind of led up by John Wojciechowski and Richmond Williams, and basically there's about 6 of us that are here that aren't on the road right now, and we've been kind of tracking stuff since the summer with the different rosters throughout the league and kind of targeting some things, and we'll follow that through all the way to the end. And then there's a couple grind nights, Thursday and Friday and Saturday, cut down weekend, just when unexpected things happen, just making sure we're on top of things. But we're, that's the preseason. We're evaluating every day, watching pro tape throughout. So,
Brian, do you know anything about Jimmy's finger and where you guys are at with that?
Yeah, I'm not going to talk about injuries, but I think we might have escaped one there. So.
Brian, are you, how convinced are you that your backup quarterback is on your roster right now?
I think we got some pretty good options, and they're competing right now. So, I think that's probably likely that it would come from guys on our roster right now.
Brian, what would be your level of concern if Aaron is not able to take any snaps in preseason going into that opener without him having taken any game reps under Matt?
I mean, he's what is Aaron, 13-year vet now, something like that. So, not high. I certainly would like to see him, to get some of that rust off of him before he gets into the Chicago game. But he's done it for a long time at a high level. So, my level of concern wouldn't be high.
Explain. I just don't understand. So he's played a lot of football, but he hasn't played a lot of football in this offense. So is that still important that he gets into the offense?
It's not like it's a different sport. You know what I mean? It's football's football. Again, we'd love to have him out there, but again, I think he got a lot of practice reps. In the Houston, I know he wasn't a fan of him, but those 2 days versus Houston, I think, was important to get out there in that environment. So, like I said, I think the plan is to get him out there Thursday night, and we'll see about Kansas City, but hopefully that'll go well.
Any concerns, you said Thursday night, with him or any other starters with the field surface up there?
I haven't seen it. All the reports I've gotten have been positive. I know the NFL, has people out there, has had people out there, and as they've made some changes to make sure that it's, NFL, all those kind of things, logistics, and I've heard good things. But obviously, once we get down there, we'll, take a hard look at it. We're not going to put our players in danger if we think it's, unsafe. But I think it's only 2 years old, so I think it's a pretty new surface.
So what do you think of your offense at this point? It's kind of gone in fits and starts through a lot of the practices. What do you think about what you got there?
Yeah, obviously, I guess it's going back to when we hired Matt. That offense is something that I've paid attention to for a long time. I think it provides challenges for defenses, I've liked the way we've progressed through the first, 4 weeks of camp. I think, quite frankly, you're probably not going to know something really until the middle of the season. These things take time. But I kind of like where we're headed.
We always talk about rookies, right, at this time, and we all try to project whether or not they're going to have an impact this year, and then it doesn't usually go the way we try to project anyway. Where do you think Gary is after 2 preseason games and after so far in camp? And were you expecting the learning curve to be a little challenging for him because of the transition he's making, not only from college to the NFL, but from position to position?
I think, I think we're very fortunate to have Z and Preston there for him to learn from, along with Kyler, quite frankly. I think if you look at the most of the trajectory of pass rushers in this league, it takes a couple of years to really kind of understand how blockers are blocking them and stuff. But everything we thought about, Rashawn before we got him has been evident out there. His speed, his power, his ability to set the edge, and we're excited kind of his progression and just the kind of the way he's bought into everything too. That's one thing about rookies sometimes you don't ever know is, how long it's going to take him to kind of become a true professional with their work habits and all that kind of stuff. And he's been working his tail off. So, we're pretty excited to kind of see his development. I think it's nice to have some guys that have done it for 4 years in the National Football League to learn from. And that group is just pretty solidified right now.
Brian, when you it's never easy to cut guys. I don't want to sound like it is, but it might be a little bit less painful to do it when he's not your draft pick versus when he is. I'm wondering philosophically, it seemed like Ted maybe was pretty patient with his draft picks.
Right.
Do you subscribe to that same theory, or does that you have to kind of earn your, for lack of a better term, earn your keep?
Yeah, I think you do have to earn your keep. As far as I think, cutting guys is never easy. It's always kind of painful, regardless of, again, I've been here the whole time. So all these guys were acquired, when I was here. They're all ours. And so it's a painful process, especially the guys that have really worked hard, but at the same time, to me, it's there's a short term and a long term kind of thought process through it, so that sometimes can pull at each other. But at the same time, you got to earn your right to be in that locker room. You know what I mean? And if you haven't done that, it's hard to keep you around.
Kind of along those lines, how much does a player's history matter to you in the grand scheme of things? Say a guy's maybe not having a great camp, or he's been banged up, or whatever it is. But a year or two ago, he was really good for you. I guess how much does that factor, or is it totally what have you done for me now kind of business?
Yeah, I think you weigh them both. I mean, I think obviously past history is probably the thing we study the most for future success. So what guys have done in the past does factor in. But this is a changing league and it changes fast. So, it's really where those players stand now is what matters. But, there's guys that have played a long time in this league and have done some good things. And just because they have maybe a bad week or a bad practice, you're not going to write them off.
You got a young guy that's never done it before on this level, like Shannon Solomon or something like Darius Shepard. What are you looking for to know that it's real? Like if they flash a little bit, know that it's not just one or two, but that it's real. They're NFL ready.
Yeah, so I think obviously when they get into the lights in the games and how they respond, and then specifically what kind of competition they're playing against within those games. You know what I mean? So. And then can they do it consistently? It's one thing to go out there and have one performance, but can they do it, through all 4 preseason games, through the practices with Houston, family night, things like that. So can they handle the moment and can they perform consistently at that level? That's kind of some of the things. And but at the same time, sometimes you're going to go into a season and they might have done it through the preseason, but the regular season's a whole new animal as well. So you're just kind of constantly looking for that consistency of performance.
What level of concern, if any, do you have about Kevin King's availability in Week 1, considering his injury history?
Yeah, I mean, you're concerned, right? Because he's not out there right now, and all of us here, we get anxious at times because we want our good players to be out there. So yeah, I mean, we'd like Kevin to be out there. We're also, I think our training staff does an exceptional job of making sure that the markers he needs to hit before we put him out there, he's hit, so we don't put him at any more risk. And I think he's getting close, but he's obviously a very talented player who can help us. So we'd like to get him out there as soon as we can.
Obviously, what you guys do is as much art as it is science, trying to figure out guys. But Rob asked a good question the other day, which was a little surprising. How does a guy like Darius Shepard slip through the cracks to the degree that he didn't even get signed after the draft and he had to come here and try out? How does that? Is it just that hard to get this right? Or?
I'd love to say that. I mean, it doesn't happen a lot, but every year you seem to find a few guys throughout the league that's happened to. We've had a number of guys here. Lucas Patrick's a perfect example. But yeah, I think it's it's maybe they're a little short, maybe they're not quite as fast as you want on the clock, and then all of a sudden their football gets overlooked. Maybe they didn't you get to a school that's got as much exposure as some, I mean, there's 1,000 different reasons, but I think that's why, like, at least in the scouting part of it, it's whether it's rookie mini camps or scouting throughout the entire season, you just don't stop. You know what I mean? Like, you just keep going, and when you do have a chance to acquire guys, if they capitalize on their opportunities, kind of like Darius did in the rookie mini camp, you take notice and you can't dismiss it. So I don't know if that answers your question, but
What's the challenge for you with Matt's offense and figuring out how you want to make your final decisions? I mean, we've had years where you had like 30 fullbacks on your roster, and then there's been years where you guys didn't carry one.
Right.
What are the challenges with that? Because we've also had conversations in the past. Can they keep 7 receivers? Well,
sure.
Not if you're keeping 4 tight ends, 2 fullbacks, etc. How does that puzzle work?
I think it's a lot of communication between Matt and I. I think the beauty of his kind of vision and his offense is that he can kind of do anything, and so he can kind of tailor it to the personnel that we have, and I think that's really important. I don't know if everything's like that, but he's if we have wherever our best players lie, I think he can kind of move in that direction, and those are some of the conversations we've had. We'll continue to have, and as we get down to this final cut with all the things that factor in injuries and other things, we'll make the best decision for the team. But I've been really impressed with our coaching staff as a whole and their ability to adjust to the personnel that we have. And I think that's a huge advantage for us just because, you'd always like to keep the best 53 that you have and not feel like you're locked into something just because of a number, so.
You mentioned the kind of competition guys go against in preseason. You've had Deshaun start the last 2 games, which means he's going against the better version of the roster of the opponent. Do you need to see Tim Boyle start, if only just to see him against better competition?
Yeah. I don't need to see. I don't know. I don't really know what Matt's plan is moving forward here in these next 2 games. But I think they both had quality reps against some pretty good competition. So that'll be Matt's decision as we move forward. But they've been really good about kind of communicating with us as far as some of the things we might want to see a little bit more here, a little bit more there. Maybe guys in different positions, things like that. So, but I don't think that's something I need to see. But if Matt wants to do that, it'll be great.
I was just wondering from an evaluation standpoint, how steep is the drop-off in competition from a QB1 to a QB2 in the preseason?
Correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think Tim was in the middle of the second quarter or something like last week. So the guys he was going against are guys that are going to be in the league, So, but and a lot of it is playing with the different guys in our roster as well, So, I understand the question. I'm not sure for me if that's something I need at this point.
When you're sitting here and it's August 19th and you got about 2 weeks till that final cut, what are the trade talks like? I mean, let's say you feel like you need another running back. I mean, what are those trade talks like now versus maybe in May or June? Is it easier to get stuff done because there's more movement, or harder to get stuff done because everyone knows there's going to be 1,000 players on the waiver wire?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. I mean, I think everybody's especially this week after that second preseason game, everybody's calling, kind of trying to figure out where you're heavy, where you're light, what you might be willing to part with. A lot of those is just information gathering on trying to figure out who's has a realistic possibility of being out there at the 53 cut. So those conversations are happening. I think in the past you've seen either late this week or early next week is when a lot of the trades happen. Once we get past that 4th preseason game, or really close to it, I should say, then everybody's just kind of waiting for waiting for guys to get cut, or maybe you see some conditional 7th round type of things, if they're on the roster for 8 weeks or whatever. So that's just part of it this time of year, and you're looking at everything, trying to collect as much data as you can.
That's sort of how the Huntley trade about that time last year,
right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's like anything. You're looking at your team and you feel strong here, and you're a little worried about here, and then that's when deals happen.
So, Goody, when we were in Indy, you had all the stuff that you could have talked about at the podium at the combine. And I think the first or second question was about Taysom Hill. From a scouting perspective, though, when you see a guy go on and do well that you had, is there any wincing do you keep track of that kind of stuff? I know fans do, so I'm just curious if scouts.
Yeah, I think, I mean, we're obviously aware of it, and we know the league and what's going on, and certainly, but I mean, this is, you just keep moving forward, you know, I mean, things change on a day-to-day basis, you know. What is one day isn't the next, and so, you know, the decisions that were made at that particular time, you know, those circumstances change overnight, you know, so happy for him, you know, and I think really, quite frankly, they've done a fantastic job of figuring out a way to use him and his skill set, you know, and that's part of it too.